Good morning and welcome to the weather briefing for the Grafham Grand Prix. This has been rescheduled, so I'm not sure who's going, but yeah, I hope you all enjoy it. It should be quite a nice day. So yeah, just looking generally, I don't know how much you guys have been involved in looking at the weather in the past couple of days. We had a low in the Irish Sea yesterday, and that's kind of being absorbed by this low pressure here, and it's been generally losing its identity. Because I recorded this reasonably early this morning, I'm on yesterday's kind of pressure charts, but I reckon this occluded front is probably starting a little bit lower and moving northeastwards. This shouldn't affect our sailing particularly. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then this trough behind it that will be in the Irish Sea at about midday is not really a problem for us. So yeah, looking at the radar, this was just before 7 o'clock, and you could see that the occluded front here is really well defined within reason, I suppose. The occluded fronts are generally pretty messy, but that is moving northeast. You might get a little bit, or you might have had a little bit of rain at this point in a little shower, but these are generally cells that move along a line, so you could get nothing. You could get a really short, sharp storm, as you can see with these little red dots indicating heavy rainfall, and it's pretty difficult to tell whether one of those will hit you kind of 5 or 6 hours out, but we generally know when that's going to happen. So if it will, then we can kind of prepare for that. So looking at the forecast, which is what you're all interested in, I'm expecting kind of 9 knots to start with, and that looks like a really quite settled day with potentially reasonably large gusts around 13-14 knots. Before the front arrives, we're expecting a build in the wind speed and the gust speed, or the wind speed starts dropping but the gusts become bigger, and that's really important as this starts to arrive. And the clouds may temporarily thin just before this front comes through, and that's just the air masses moving through. And so what we're experiencing here is a thinning of the clouds, and we might have some showers before, but generally not in the kind of couple of hours before an occluded front comes through of this kind of nature. And yeah, so this kind of period here is when you're going to be doing most of your sailing. I'm expecting a general drop, but large gusts, and then we're going to see a left shift as this front comes in, and that could be up to 20 degrees, potentially even more, which will be quite noticeable on Grafham. And yeah, it will be kind of generally stable up until then, and then quite unstable into the evening, and that's quite a big difference. Temperatures are reasonably stable. I wouldn't expect a massive change, but yeah, no, that's kind of our day in numbers. Looking at the graph, seeing a steady decline as we come into the afternoon, so hopefully the race officers get it off nice and on time. And yeah, these little steps kind of indicate periods where we experience different kind of weather phenomena. So this one between 12 and 1 is the time just before the front comes through, and that's when we're experiencing the large gusts. And then 2 till 3 and onwards is after that front. And as you can see, it is dead straight from the south up until kind of 3 o'clock, and then we're seeing that left-hand shift and then the right-hand shift afterwards, which is as the front comes through, and that's kind of been indicated here on the wind speed as well. So yeah, this is obviously with kind of like the confidence levels that I assign, and that's based on the kind of model spread, but also how much the kind of wind speed or direction is changing at that time, and how certain I am that these things are going to happen. So I grew up sailing at Grafham, so it's reasonably kind of comfortable for me in terms of knowing what goes where. I think you've got two courses today, so I would imagine a fast course over here and a slow course to the right looking from the clubhouse. And you've got quite a big feature on your left here with reasonably, well, it's a hill, but you do get a little bit of compression, a little bit of wind bend over on that right hand side. We're obviously looking at a southerly. So yeah, on that beat you would expect a bit of a left hand shift towards the top. And then on this race course it's reasonably neutral in terms of kind of gain features, but again you do have the wind rolling over the top of the village, so you will get kind of gusts and shifts depending on that state. And yeah, no, it's a reasonably good direction for a kind of Grafham Grand Prix setup, just because we've got so much space in this wind direction. So yeah, I hope you have. Oh no, I've got one more. Here I'm looking at the kind of wind shear, different heights, and what that does is it kind of tells me how gusty and how shifty it is. And to be honest, there's no real kind of big difference. This is kind of how I would expect. We're not getting a really turbulent day compared to most occluded fronts, but it's really important to note that once that occluded front comes through, we're seeing a lot more wind shear in both direction and speed as that comes through. So kind of so before we are seeing a reasonable amount that I would expect, and then during that front we see a lot less because there's a lot less activity, and then after that comes through we're seeing a lot more shear. And yeah, that's quite important to note. So yeah, I hope you have a good day. I've been Steve from Orcamet, and yeah, I've been doing these forecasts for all of the Sail G series purely for enjoyment. If you'd like to see more, you can contact me by email, steve@orcamet.co.uk, on my Instagram or on my YouTube. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you soon.